Thank you so much, Sean. So excited to see folks what we achieved in 2023. My name is Chirag Narang, Head of Product at Flow Foundation. A little bit about myself. Before coming and joining the team here, I spent about last 15 years building distributed systems. I was working with Yugabyte. We built a distributed database industries, fully compatible first Postgres database. I spent about 7 years building an API platform at MuleSoft. So I've been super passionate about distributed systems in general. And that brings to my icebreaker question on how did I get involved with crypto? It was not until actually when Dieter reached out to me in mid-2021, and he said something really interesting, which kind of put everything in sort of perspective. He said, Chirag, you spent most of your career building a distributed database and an API platform, which is essentially a blockchain, a distributed database with an open API layer, which is the smart contracts, right? So kind of felt like it was my home calling, and that led to hours of conversation with Deet. And if you're me, if you hear Deet talking, it's just an opportunity you don't want to turn down, right? So that opportunity of working with Deet, Roham, Sean, Alex, and the rest of the team, it was something just felt like the right move for my career. So here I am. All right, what am I going to talk about? As Deet mentioned, I'm going to talk about working groups and Crescendo. With the launch of Flow Foundation, this is an opportune moment for us on how we work moving forward. This is not just a time-bound initiative. This is not something part of our OKR cycle. This is our identity on how we engage with the community at large, how we build in public, how we think about maintenance of public goods. Open internet is for all of us, so it's got to be responsibility of everyone on this call and the rest of the ecosystem to help to maintain and further advance the mission and vision of Flow. No matter what's your passion, if you're passionate about developer experience, governance, distributed systems, tokenomics, community growth, we need you. We need you. We need everyone on this call to help further advance that mission of Flow. It starts with calling for ecosystem-wide transparency. You would see there'll be a full symmetry of core foundation teams mapped to our product portfolio and mapped to our public ecosystem priorities. That gives everyone a full 360 view of what we are doing moving forward, and you have a voice in it in influencing the product roadmap. Working groups are designed to help with market research, open planning, specs design, flips approval, voting, and the governance, overall organization neutral governance of Flow Foundation moving forward. They help with ecosystem development and marketing. And one of the biggest changes, they help with cross-functional development, which will be across these working groups, leading to big launch moments. And we'll see today on with Crescendo how we are changing moving forward and moving from a siloed product release to big launch moments. This program is designed for anyone to engage with the core teams and find opportunities to contribute and further find project funding and grants on how they can help us to build the future of Flow. Why should you consider joining? Meet like-minded builders. There's already a strong community of Flow builders. You get to meet your tribe. You get to find exclusive opportunities. As you learn about our ecosystem priorities, there is so much work to be done across the ecosystem. You get to influence the product direction. You get to see things before anyone else, participate in those ecosystem priorities discussion, early access to preview releases, and give feedback before we ship that product to mainnet. And finally, you get to work with me and everybody else on the team. You get to work alongside the core team. Everyone's welcome. We are literally lifting the curtain to every part of our product. Doesn't matter if you are a Flow leader, a builder, a token holder, there is work to be done across the ecosystem. If you're passionate about developer experience, you're passionate about challenging problems in the distributed system space, data privacy, scale, security, Byzantine fault tolerance. You're someone who just loves making content. You are an active community member who wants to grow the ecosystem. Or you're someone who's a degen who cares about tokenomics, DeFi, or decentralized governance. As long as you're passionate about Flow as much as I am, we need you. Please come join us. With that, these are 6 new working groups: user experience, DeFi, wallet, Cadence, core protocol, governance. Some of you have been already engaging with our Cadence working group, so there'll be a bit of change on that side and also on governance and tokenomics. So let's dive in. The goal of user experience working group is to work with the developers to build delightful user experiences on Flow. In short term, they'll be focused on building the developer base by supporting EVM on Flow, onboarding world-class EVM infrastructure, developer tooling, and platform, and also working on the growth for our ecosystem. In long term, we believe smart contracts are going to become a lot more complex. So they're going to incubate, help onboarding and supporting innovative Web3 apps, and finally bringing Web3 to the mainstream. DeFi. The goal of this working group is to work towards building a greater Flow token utility and liquidity incentives. In the short term, the goal would be to build a best-in-class liquidity infrastructure, bridges, CCTP, centralized exchanges, DEXs, on and off ramps, and then using that infrastructure to build a cohort of homegrown DeFi protocols on Flow and Cadence. And as part of EVM launch, also onboard key ETH native Blue DeFi protocols. In the long term, it will be focused on deepening participant engagement by optimizing liquidity incentives, and also expand on how DeFi could look like with some of Flow's unique features, such as MEV resistance and more complex smart contracts. Wallet. This group will shepherd the roadmap of Flow reference wallet, which provides a seamless and secure experience between two different zones, Cadence and EVM. In short term, they'll develop a Flow EVM implementation of Flow reference wallet, support Web3.js, and support the growth of EVM wallets on Flow, and also work on supporting secure enclave for key management and signing. In long term, they'll work towards creating a best-in-class safety and security for both developers and users, with features like passkey support, account backup, recovery, and human-readable transactions. Cadence. The scope of Cadence working group is expanding. Until now, it was just focused on the language design. Now, Cadence working group will not just focus on that, but also includes Cadence virtual machine and Cadence execution performance. In short term, they'll be focused on Cadence 1.0. We'll talk about that in a bit, and then bringing Flow EVM to mainnet. In long term, the focus of this working group is parallel execution for improving the execution performance, and supporting compilation, which will help us to evolve the language in a backwards compatible manner. And finally, WebAssembly API, which creates a fertile ground for new use cases. Core protocol. Core protocol's mission is to efficiently scale the system without compromising decentralization and composability. In short term, they'll be focused on reducing downtime through rolling high coordinated upgrades, scaling the state growth of the system, and security and Byzantine fault tolerance. In long term, we'll be focused on bringing zero downtime network upgrades, highly parallel transaction execution for scaling performance, and fully autonomous permissionless participation for all node types. Governance. Until now, if you've been engaging, there is already a governance and a tokenomics working group. So the scope of this working group is also changing. The broader mandate for this working group is to work towards a smooth and effective transition to on-chain governance. In short term, they'll be focused on tokenomics as it relates to the network security, and also optimizing inflation and moving towards a transparent and a community-driven operator selection. In long term, focus is to move to full on-chain voting, autonomous protocol, optimal treasury allocation, and appointment of democratic leadership. So how can you get involved? All the working group DRIs leads have the clear mandate to operationalize these working groups. Either you can scan this QR code, go to that GitHub repo, you'll see the scope, mandate, vision, short-term, long-term focus, and steps to follow along and join those working groups. Crescendo. As Steve mentioned, folks, really stoked about our next network upgrade. Okay, sorry, bit of lag. By far, this is gonna be our biggest network upgrade since the launch of Flow in 2020. The three big pillars for this release: we are bringing EVM equivalence to Flow. That will unlock ecosystem interoperability with the rest of EVM ecosystem. Second, Cadence 1.0. Cadence is reaching feature completion. That will truly unlock the power of blockchains, which is write once, run forever, immutable smart contracts. And third, performance improvements, which comes with state scalability for execution nodes. Let's dive in. In the current state of ecosystem, Flow and Ethereum are two fragmented ecosystems. If you're a developer, you've been forced to make a difficult choice. There is a trade-off. You want to build mainstream application, Flow is a natural place to do those things. But due to lack of EVM constructs, primitives, Flow lacks a robust developer infrastructure that you get on Ethereum. Flow has weak self-custody primitives, and Flow suffers from some of liquidity problems. Versus on the Ethereum side, Ethereum has massive network effects when it comes to self-custody and liquidity and the DeFi infrastructure. But at the same time, Ethereum struggles with some of its mainstream adoption challenges. And you can see recently Ethereum is making some progress on the mainstream side with account abstraction. It's also trying to move into a modular architecture with data availability stack, proposer builder separation. So there's a great deal of synergies here on where the Ethereum EVM ecosystem is moving along and what Flow has today in terms of unique capabilities. So that presents us with a unique opportunity that we can bring support for EVM to Flow and unlock much, much bigger opportunities that we have today. So as we think about the EVM equivalence, there were 4 design goals. Simply targeting EVM compatibility is insufficient. We are calling for full equivalence. When bringing EVM to a new network like Flow, simply compatibility is not sufficient. Existing smart contracts, they need to work directly on the new platform without any concerns about API compatibility, unexpected side effects, or alternate security concerns. If it's not 100% buck for buck compatible, then it can lead to non-trivial amount of work to adapt those applications to the new network. Goal is to provide full EVM equivalence so developers can deploy their EVM apps with minimum or no code changes. That means techniques like cross-compilation or bytecode level compatibility is not enough. With this design, you can expect identical JSON RPC endpoint, similar security transaction account model to EVM, and even support for state and even Merkle proofs. The second design choice was we wanted to make sure this EVM environment can inherit all of Flow's core protocol functionality. We'll look at that in a second. So this EVM environment runs inside a secure smart contract, which means it doesn't have to deal with any complicated consensus algorithm, mempools, and networking. So just like any other smart contract on Flow, it assumes it inherits all of our core protocol properties and features natively. No compromises with composability. One of the biggest strengths for Flow and Cadence is composable smart contracts. Because EVM is implemented as a secure smart contract, it allows for Cadence to easily extend that functionality, EVM functionality. The fourth one is we wanted to make sure this upgrade is localized and non-disruptive to any existing apps or tools. The new client that we are introducing, the JSON RPC client and gateway, will abstract most of the details on how EVM is going to work. This is what happens behind the scene. As we talk about full compatibility, what we are doing is we are building a JSON RPC gateway, EVM gateway. This can interact with any web3.js client like MetaMask or any web3.js compatible client, which can issue transactions with the same transaction model, cryptographic proofs, and it has the same poster for any encoding. This EVM gateway wraps it into a Cadence transaction that interacts with Flow access node, and upstream, which can interact with the Solidity contract that is deployed inside a secure EVM contract. As we have a single new smart contract to run the EVM environment, a new kind of client can interact with the Flow access API. That means our existing tools and apps on Flow are not impacted by this at all. This gateway can also provide state and event queries with proofs. It would use a Cadence script to fetch results from within the EVM environment and then respond to the client exactly matching the Ethereum RPC requirements. That gives you the full compatibility, full equivalence of an EVM environment. What are the benefits of this EVM equivalence? As I mentioned, minimum to no code changes for your EVM dApps and Solidity contract. You don't have to compromise on the choice of language. You can choose between Solidity, Viper, or Cadence. Once new tools are onboarded, you can expect your existing infrastructure like MetaMask, Hardhat, Truffle, and many more. And then, as I mentioned, this is implemented as a secure smart contract, which means all of our native core protocol features are available. You can seamlessly extend your EVM application with protocol native account abstraction, account linking, support for secure enclave. You get low fees, high transaction throughput, and massive account storage. And finally, you get native support for data availability stack, inbuilt proposal builder separation, and separation of consensus and compute, and all that without sharding, single atomic execution state. But wait, there is more. Thanks to our WebAssembly API, this Cadence can be upgradable to any VM to support any language and new use cases. This is a fertile ground for a lot of innovation in the future. You can write software components in any language for specialized use cases like AI. And I was talking about the composability. Imagine someone building an EVM app and a Cadence developer seamlessly expanding and building on top of it. Folks, this is really powerful. A new president has been set in the industry with this EVM equivalence. Second pillar, Cadence 1.0. As I was talking about on how EVM is implemented, it's leveraging a secure smart contract. So as we were thinking about the foundation of building this environment, it was really important for us that we build on a foundation where developers have the full confidence that they can build their software, write once, and run forever. This is where Cadence is reaching the full feature completeness. It will unlock fully immutable smart contracts. Look at the journey, folks. This has been the making for a long time. Cadence first release came out in 2020. And back in 2022, all the great work from Bastian, Deed, and other folks from the community, we proposed a design for secure Cadence and V1.0. That led to a release in 2022 for secure Cadence, which came with security hardening and finally unlocked permissionless smart contract deployment. For the last 2.5 years, we have been building Cadence 1.0, and now it's reaching a state where it guarantees future backward compatibility of smart contracts, thus unlocking the biggest promise. You write a smart contract once and it runs forever. What can you expect with Cadence 1.0? It significantly improves the developer experience. The cores, fungible token, NFT standards have been streamlined. We have simplified the usage of capabilities. The resource access control with entitlements has been improved. It comes with elevated safety and security. A lot of security foot guns have been eliminated. We have removed custom destructors. And then finally, it's introducing a new feature called attachments, which unlocks permissionless composability. Now you can compose new experiences on top of someone else's smart contract that is not authored by you without asking for anyone's explicit approval. And many more syntax improvements. The third pillar, state scalability. Before I dive into this, a little bit background about Flow's modular architecture. As I was talking about how Flow follows separation of consensus and compute, which means there are specialized execution nodes that are responsible for transaction execution. That way, we are able to make sure there is consumer-grade hardware for running the rest of the infrastructure, and there is dedicated hardware for running execution nodes. As an industry, we are really focused on transaction throughput most of the time, and we don't talk enough about state scalability. State is always growing. And as state grows, the requirement for running a node becomes higher and higher in monolith architecture because all of the state is replicated and is redundant across hundreds of thousands of nodes. Because we follow separation of consensus and compute, execution nodes are specialized to deal with those state growth concerns. Through work on A-tree inlining and data duplication, you can see on some of our test results, we have been able to add 2x more capacity for state growth on execution nodes. This lays a massive foundation for our state sizes in the future. Now in the future, we can support hundreds of terabytes of state with minimum impact on transaction throughput. And it also lays basis for improving transaction execution performance in the future. Finally, the release timeline. So as I mentioned, it all started back in 2022 with the Cadence 1.0 design proposal. And fast track to Q4 23, somewhere in mid of October, Dieter proposed design for EVM equivalence on Flow. In mid-Jan, we released a version of local emulator for local development with EVM and Cadence 1.0. At this time, we are expecting to have a new test network, Crescendo Network, which would be launched towards the tail end of Feb. And from there, we start the work for launch for go-to-market and partner onboarding. Somewhere around end of April, we expect Flow Core Wallet to support EVM and add support for web3.js. And we take about 2 to 3 months, barring no security concerns, no glaring concerns. We expect to have a testnet upgrade somewhere around mid of Q2. And towards the tail end of Q2, we can expect EVM, Cadence on all these state scalability features to be available on mainnet. And of course, as you would expect, all these future-looking timelines are subject to change. I would ask you, all of you, to follow working groups to get the latest updates. Web3 LAMP stack. If you're old enough, you'll recall the LAMP stack in early 2000s, which was about Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It really evolved on how we are thinking about building software. Until LAMP stack was introduced, most of the websites, most of the software that was built was static. It brought the new concept of dynamic interactive websites, and some of the software that was launched in early 2000 were content management system like WordPress, Drupal, and even the early version of Facebook. And rest is history on how software development radically evolved after that. I believe we are in a similar phase with Web3 right now. Today, most of Web3 is focused on using blockchain as a means for storing and exchanging ownership. But as we look in the future, smart contracts are going to get much more complex. There'll be need for a platform where you could do more computations within those smart contracts. This is where there would be a need for a computation layer and a liquidity layer. Now, with this EVM equivalence, Flow can truly be that computation platform, where you have support for mainstream apps, you have support for degen apps, you have a resource-oriented programming like Cadence, and the support for Solidity and rest of other languages. And with centralized bridges, and in future, hopefully trustless and decentralized bridges, you can interact with Ethereum as a liquidity layer for an easy in and out of the system. With that, thank you so much, folks. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or catch me in person during ETH Denver. And now I'll pass it over to Rohan.